Hey, I'm Jason Chen. This is the new iPhone.
This was Apple's biggest leak ever. Until now. Tim Cook is panicking over what just was released on YouTube. Plus, Apple is gearing up for their last big event, big product release of 2024 with a surprise or two. We've got some big software updates finally coming soon, and yearly iPhone upgrades might be coming to an end. As always, the world of Apple news is pretty wild, and this week is no exception. So let me break down all the latest leaks, rumors, and tell you what you need to know right now and why Tim Cook is really mad. Okay, so I've been covering Apple news professionally on this channel for the last couple of years, but before that, adolescent Robert was just an Apple mega fan, and I will never forget 14 years ago when the biggest Apple leak ever hit the internet like a bombshell, and it was the full release of the iPhone 4 before Apple officially announced the iPhone 4. As you can imagine, this was a pretty big deal for a couple of big reasons. The first is that this was Steve Jobs' Apple. So even though Apple is still very secretive and elusive and mysterious today, Steve Jobs ruled Apple with an iron fist, and leaks were not tolerated. And for something like this to leak out from Steve Jobs' control was like a monumental security failure. Another reason this was particularly not good is that this wasn't really just any iPhone leak, but it just so happened that the 2010 iPhone 4 was like a major redesign in like every single way. This was back in the days when we got some pretty significant redesigns, and at the time this was the most significant iPhone redesign of them all. You had that sort of glass back, you had the now infamous antenna band that ran around the phone, you had the little circular volume buttons, you had the Retina HD display, you had a front-facing camera for the first time ever on an iPhone. Of course, of all the things to leak, everything would have been bad, but this was just a major redesign, and one that Apple really wanted to be a surprise that just turned out to be basically anything but. And then reason number 3 why this was a particularly big deal was that this wasn't like a spy shot leak, wasn't like a CAD render file, wasn't like a schematic or a shot from the factory. This was the full phone in the hands of journalists, and even though it didn't turn on because Apple remotely bricked it, that didn't really matter. You could see in all its glory the full iPhone redesign. You could tell this was an authentic piece of Apple prototype gear, and we basically learned all the little features of the iPhone 4's design way before Steve Jobs officially unveiled it a couple of months later.
An all-new design. Now, stop me if you've already seen this.
But that was obviously 14 years ago. A lot has changed between then and now. Apple has beefed up their security practices. They have a lot more checks and balances in place. They want to make sure nothing like that ever would happen again, which was the case up until a couple of days ago, when we might have even just gotten a worse leak than what happened with the iPhone 4. As of now, we still don't know exactly what happened, but essentially we started to see retail packaging images of the M4 MacBook Pro before, obviously, it's announced, it wasn't even official. And Apple packaging sometimes can be fake, sometimes it's real. It's sort of hard to discern whether this is legit or not. But then an Apple YouTuber in Russia actually got this thing, then unboxed it, then went on to boot it up, turn it on, use it, and run a bunch of different benchmark tests, which gave us a bunch of info on the all-new M4 MacBook Pro. I think it actually might have bounced around between a couple of different videos or a couple of different YouTubers in Russia. Then, over the last couple of days, it ended up on a classified site in the country as well that you could actually buy it, which I wouldn't recommend because that would be illegal. Long story short, this is a monumental security breach again from Apple, and it's fascinating to know exactly how this happened because this isn't just the computer that snuck out, not just the box, but like a retail packaged M4 MacBook Pro ready to go to a store was somehow smuggled out of a shipping center or a factory or whatever, made its way through a network, went to YouTubers, and then actually worked, which is honestly the most surprising thing of all because as we learned from the whole iPhone 4 debacle, Apple can definitely remotely sort of brick or turn off or make a device that was, lost or stolen inaccessible to use. But that doesn't seem to be the case with this. Booted up, worked, and even ran some Geekbench tests. And basically what this alludes to is the fact that yes, an all-new M4 MacBook Pro is definitely coming, and likely coming very soon. According to Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg, we should be getting M4 MacBook Pros, likely an M4 iMac, and also this all-new smaller M4 Mac Mini, but it's unclear right now how this is going to be released. We're hearing a November 1st release date is sort of in the ether right now as to when these, at least or some of these, might become available, but we don't know if this is going to be a press release announcement. Will it be a second fall event like the Scary Fast event last year? Could we see a base iPad and iPad mini update? Because those are also sort of in the rumor mill to be launching very soon. Not exactly sure, but still just a stunning security breach. And if you're wondering, had any doubt in your mind, yes, an M4 MacBook Pro is likely coming very, very soon. Moving on from that, I've got a bit of an update here on Apple Intelligence, the very rogue Apple feature that was announced as the big iPhone 16 feature that still hasn't really made its debut yet. We're hearing that Apple might start rolling out at least some Apple Intelligence features on October 28th, so a couple of weeks from now, we should see some features, but these likely won't be the big ones. At least we're hearing right now from Bloomberg again that iOS 18.4 launching in January, so sometime in 2025, would be the release that had the all-new Siri and all the new integrations and the new animation, so all that bigger stuff is coming later. So it seems like we're slowly starting to see some Apple Intelligence stuff start to roll out later on this month. But again, the bigger stuff, the stuff you probably want with Apple Intelligence, likely won't be launching until early 2025. And then I really wanted to address this post that was sort of making the rounds over on different social media communities over the week. It was this really controversial post that Apple was going to be moving away from the yearly upgrade cycle for their products. Now, on face value, there's a lot of split opinions on this. It makes a lot of sense in some ways, it doesn't in a lot of others. I've actually argued for and against this in multiple videos on this channel before, so I won't rehash all that, but let me sort of tell you the truth behind that post and what you need to know. Again, Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg sort of broke the news on this, and it isn't exactly breaking news because it's something we've started to see. And to clarify this, Apple is not moving away from yearly upgrades for all of their products, but at least for some of them. Some things like the iPhone, though you could argue you might get a better iPhone if Apple didn't have the pressure of the yearly release window, is going to remain a yearly release because that's what Apple needs to do to make a lot of money. That's what they need to do to remain competitive with Google and Samsung and others. So the iPhone will likely stay on an annual upgrade cycle, but we've started to see other products sort of take a different direction. AirPods, iPads, Macs, even Apple Watches with the Apple Watch Ultra, these are all products that have started to take a different approach with when they are released. Apple is doing them a little bit more sporadically, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, on one hand, it's hard to know when a good time to buy is if you don't know when the new version is coming. But on the other hand, it could be argued that a lot of these products and the teams behind them can thrive if they have more time to get things done. And maybe there's an argument to be made that, again, if the iPhone and Apple Intelligence wasn't on this rigorous cycle, that all these features could launch at once and they would be better if Apple didn't have to drive to meet those deadlines. Now, again, there's obviously, arguments for and against this, but again, just to be clear, to clarify that point, this does not mean the iPhone won't be getting upgrades every year, but some other Apple products likely will take a bit more of a hiatus between major upgrades. So maybe 16 months, 18 months, 12 months, really sort of depends. Hopefully it's not like the AirPods Max that had like a 4-year gap almost between version 1 and version 2, but just something to keep on your radar for Apple products moving forward. All right, guys, so that is the biggest Apple news of the week. As always, I want to know your thoughts down below, your thoughts on the upgrade cycle. Should Apple stick with a yearly upgrade cycle? Should they not? Your thoughts on the big Apple leak of the week. Is this worse than the iPhone 4? Not as bad? Drop a comment down below and let me know. As always, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I am Robert Rosenfeld from the Apple Circle. I'll see you all in the next one.